Welcome back to Equal Time Soccer. We're live. We have Mankato legend Jenny Vetter with us. And excuse any of the noise, I'm here at the world famous Blackheart Bar. Part of my convergence of work here is that we got to accept the free space has a little construction going on for a patio to be named, to come. But we have Jenny here. Jenny, you have signed with a team in Portugal. It's a new club. Just talk about when you first made contact. It's Racing Power FC, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did that connection come about with racing?
Sure. So I was very lucky to be signed with Inspired 11. They're an agency. And so my agent, Gabriel, has been a ton of help just kind of facilitating the next steps in my career. And so kind of has really helped me in that regard and kind of put all my info out to a bunch of teams. And Racing Power was one of them that kind of got back to him, and we were able to kind of move forward with them.
Yeah. Well, and you start this journey after college ends, right? Players they put on a highlight reel. Wow, there's really some work going down the wall. Jen, you put on a highlight reel, right? Which I love seeing. A couple of them I could recognize having watched, like some of your games with Bemidji. There was a random like a header off the bounce in Bemidji, and I was like, oh, Jenny had a header. But you make the highlight reel. You declare for the draft. Just talk about that when you first do that. I mean, how does that process start for you? How do you get yourself into that of, I just have to try to find a place, try and find an opportunity?
It's kind of hard because there's a lot of unknowns. Unless you have an agent, which I didn't until recently, you really don't know the right steps or, what the right thing to do is. And so I think just putting your name out there and using what connections you do have. My college coach was a big help in that as well. He had a couple of connections that he could, probe their interest and kind of see if anything was there. And so just kind of getting your name out there is the first step. And even putting, my name in the draft, it's like, well, I'm not going to go in the draft, but at least your name gets sent out and you're on the list and in the discovery pool. And so you never really know what's going to happen next. So.
I'm assuming, and like knowing where you're coming from, like D2 players don't get drafted. It's a really small draft, but but when it did happen, did you kind of pay attention, being like, well, maybe like
there's always that like little bit of hope.
Like I don't know,
like maybe like
it's a cool thing about the game that we are seeing at least announced, and we'll see how it comes to fruition. But a lot of new pro leagues for women because it is way too small of a world of just how many NWSL teams we have. Thankfully, they're expanding, but then, the USL, WPSL, there's a Canadian league coming about. So there's a lot of players that just seeing how many Minnesotans are playing in random European leagues. There's more. We need more spots. So, yeah. But you also, I guess, I don't know how much you want to share, but just for people, how did you get your agent? Like, you're in Mankato. Like, how do you go? How do you find an agent?
Again, a process that you can't just Google most of the time, like women's soccer.
Maybe you do Google it.
like you can, and it's kind of the balance of like, okay, well, they represent, the top level, be realistic, So it's kind of just doing my research. It's funny how much you can find on Instagram on like just typing in agencies and so really just, Googling and diving into some of those different agencies, and then met with a couple of them via Zoom and just kind of going with my gut on what felt right. So.
Yeah. And you had earlier, I know just honestly from talking to, my brother was telling me you did have an opportunity. You were training with Houston, right? I don't know how much you want to talk about that, but that must have been wild to even get that chance. Obviously, that you moved away from that and now you have a new chance. But talk about just that, getting the chance to be down there. And I think you were posting on Insta. It was out there.
Yeah. Yeah. It was very surreal. It was a great opportunity for me. I went to their tryouts, and so the opportunity kind of materialized from that.
And when was that? When were the tryouts?
Oh,
was that like they posted as in like open or like you reached out?
Yep, open tryouts.
Okay, I did not know that NWSL teams did that level of.
And I actually was in Louisville like the week or two before. So went down to
Mhm.
Louisville open tryouts and went down to Houston's open tryouts. And that was, maybe 2 weeks before their preseason started, I want to say, maybe a
Yeah,
week. The
yeah,
timeline is blurred now, of
yeah,
course.
yeah.
Yeah, so went down to their open tryouts and then was invited back for their preseason. And it was just a really great opportunity to train at that level and
Yeah.
with the players that they have and learning from them and the coaching staff. So, yeah, very grateful to have experienced it for sure and kind of just get that first taste a little bit.
Uh-huh. Absolutely makes you a lot more prepared to go into the first like your
Yep.
first deal. You are someone known for speed. Like I was watching Mankato United yesterday, you were as well, and I was thinking a couple times, man, it'd be nice if Jenny could run like the channel. But did you feel slow at Houston? You must have.
Um, I would say like physically not slow, but like the speed of play is so
Of
much
course.
faster. So it's like physically, it's like, okay, I can like keep up, I'm not like a step behind,
Yeah.
whatever, but it's like definitely an adjustment. And especially like the nerves, of course, too. You're like in
Yeah.
that environment for the first time. And
Yeah.
so I think just like that adjustment was bigger than anything else, like physically.
Absolutely. Well, and it's also unique for you. I mean, in the sense of you're absolutely, you're an All-American, you're a big time performer at Mankato, and Mankato is a high level program, but and maybe it helps a bit. Like you're coming from D2, like there's no mistake, like your role in the squad, but talk about mentally the difference because you've been a starter for 5 years, since being a sophomore. You just start, you
Yeah.
play, you score all the goals, and you are no one special when you go to Houston, right?
Mhm.
So like how does that mindset shift go for you?
Yeah, I think I was really ready to embrace it. Especially after my career at MSU, while being like the leader, the goal scorer, it's like fantastic, and that role was something I was very grateful to take on. It's also like stepping out of that role and into a role where I can just learn and have no pressure and have like not place expectations on myself. I
Yeah,
think that was also very like almost like relaxing for me in a way to be
yeah,
like, I have no pressure. Like there is no one expects anything from me. I'm a
yeah.
child. It's like they don't even know what school I played at. So it's like in that sense, it was kind of I
Uh-huh.
can just be here and I can just play and not have that pressure that I would normally place on myself.
Mhm. Yeah. Did they make fun of your accent, Jenny? I don't think you have a harsh one, but I'm sure we both do.
Like just a little bit, I would
A
say.
little bit. I mean, look, yeah, it happens. I,
It
I, I, I
is-
like to think I'm neutral, but I hear myself. Look,
yeah, same. Except it's just certain words like you say bag and they're like, oh gosh.
it's tough, man. We do the vowels hard at the bar. I'm at the bar.
Yep.
You are going to a team, seemingly, from what I could find, a really new team. Like they were founded a few years ago. They have been promoted up into now the first division in Portugal. This will be their first year,
Yep.
and it is. I did just some Wikipedia of it. Seychelles, I think.
Yep.
I did the audio pronunciation,
Yeah, I had
but a small city, but it's kind of like a little like Super Mankato, but it's on the coast in
yeah.
Portugal. How much did you do your Googling of the team once you heard
Yeah.
it?
I like do like the Google view of the city and stuff, and it's close to Lisbon, just across like the water from Lisbon, so
Oh
that's
wow.
to be like closer to a big city. And you can look where their field is and kind of see what the city is like, and
Mhm.
so did a little bit of research like that, and just yeah, it looks beautiful. So
Mhm. Do you already download Duolingo? What do you do?
oh
What do
yeah,
you think of the language?
oh yeah, yeah. I do have Duolingo downloaded. It's like slow work, but I also, from my research, I think it's the English fluency is decent.
Yeah. Do they have any Americans on the team or any other Canadians or
Yeah,
English speakers?
I'm not sure yet. I know they're rebuilding a little bit from last
Right.
year in terms of roster, so
Mhm.
not all that has been like announced and stuff. So
Yeah. No, I mean exciting, and it's a league where for people who follow equal time, Morgan Turner, who was a standout for Aurora last year in the W League, a DePaul player as well. She played in Portugal this last spring, scored a little bit of goals, and she had an injury, but we'll see if she's back there this year. So yeah, wonderful. I mean, talk about just a cool place to go. You're on
yeah,
the coast, like wow. So it's even the experience itself, equal to the soccer part of it. What does it mean for you? I mean, Mankato is a small city. I mean, it's close to the metro, and there's, of course, we get players out of there, but it's still a really cool thing for someone that you are all Mankato. You played Mankato United, you did, Mankato West, right? I mean, Minnesota State.
East. I have to correct you.
Would you East?
Rivalry. Yep.
Dogged them. Wow. That fully crossed the Civil War for you. Sorry about that. But yeah, what does it mean? Just, that you're going to be an example for other players and, potentially even other teammates of yours, could be on a path like this and representing Mankato.
Yeah, it's definitely special. I think it just shows that regardless of where you come from or where you play, I think it just shows if you want it, you can make it happen. And you don't always have to have the biggest name or the flashiest resume or you played ECNL or whatever.
Right.
It just shows that if you're good enough, if you work hard enough, that you can reach that next level and kind of take the path that fits best for you versus the conventional path. So
yeah, it's a cool thing. I mean, that is for you to stay local like that. I mean, it absolutely is. It's a rarity, you would say, because probably other players would be like, well, maybe I'm going to drive up in the summer and play up in the cities. Maybe I'm going to, or after a couple years at Mankato, maybe I'm going to transfer up and try and get a year at D1 just to have it on paper. But you just got developing your game. Talk about training at Houston, I'm sure absolutely helped. You said speed of play. Now you're going into a signed deal. Talked about your ability with speed and your offensive game and your work rate. But what do you, as a pro, try to develop in the meantime? Or and even when you get there, what are you most focused on developing to try to make the adjustment up to pro?
Yeah. I think, you talk about the Division II level and the NSIC, and I think it's almost comparable in the way it's transitional to the NWSL. Some teams like possession, some teams are counterattack, and I think in the NSIC at least it's very transitional. And so I think working on my skills in possession and the tactics of that, as well as the defensive tactics, I think is what I'm looking to kind of increase, and just how can I be a player that helps in the build and can kind of make those combinations and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be, I'm sure you'll want to play wherever you can get minutes on the field, and you definitely could be someone who, they're going to put you at midfield where you have to work. People love to just make wingers into outside backs, so it could be, it might be something like that where they're like, you know what, that's the way you get the minutes. And Vlatko, play Crystal Dunn in the midfield. You don't have to stick her back. Come on, man. At the World Cup coming, I know you won't, but I just have to make it known. How much have you actually communicated with the coach, or how much when you communicated via agent to the team, did they communicate your role or what to expect going into racing?
Yeah, I think obviously it's an exciting time for the team, just being promoted, and so they look at me and they want me to score goals, so I think that's something really special to have that belief or their belief in me. And to kind of have that role, obviously got to get over there and got to work hard and earn the spot and earn the minutes. But I think just initially feeling really good about their expectations of me. So yeah. Yeah.
Well, and there's a bit of pressure in European leagues. There's rules in each different league about how many foreigners they can have. So when they sign an American, it's they expect you to compete, right? They're they expect you to score the goals and do what you're known for. So yeah, that'll be a fun. Is it good to know that you feel like you have a role you're going into? I'll read a quick ad. This show is brought to you by Pentz Homes. Whether you're buying or selling or looking to do some projects in your current home, Nate and Lydia can help you find what you need. Need financing for a basement remodel, looking at a second bath, or even a workspace now that you're working from home? Pentz Homes and their preferred lender, Angie Shearer, with Luminate Financing, can help you find the right financing tool. Go to pentzhomes.com or learn more on social media at Pentz Homes. Let's talk about Mankato. I did you dirty with the West reference. We're all East here today at equal time. But you were, like I said, high school, club growing up. I want to know, I like asking strikers this, and look, to the defenders, I'm sorry. when we can't watch every game, the stats are an easy way in. And so we talk about goals, man. How many goals did you score? Do you know, Jenny? At Minnesota State, how many goals?
I want to say it's over 50. I don't remember. I don't know the exact number though.
Yeah, it's 57.
Yeah.
And the NSIC, credit to the NSIC, they do a lot of great production. They have not updated their record books for those of us in the off season. So I believe the all-time leading scorer. Is that something you were made aware of, or did they say that when you?
I knew I was close. I didn't keep the tally, to know for sure, but
we'll call it. People can correct us afterwards. 57 goals, 18 assists. But we were watching. I wanted to ask you this about playing in Mankato. We were watching the United game yesterday, which they had honestly, it ended up being 4-0, but Mankato played very well. They're a much younger team, a hyper-local squad. It's a really cool club in Minnesota soccer. And Bethany Lutheran has a really nice soccer stadium. It's a small stadium, but there's very few that are dedicated to it. I just wondered, when you were playing at Mankato, did you ever want to get a game in the big football stadium of we're playing Bemidji or whoever and we want to try and do that?
Honestly, no. It sounds odd, but it's I feel like we practice every day on that field,
on the pitch,
and we're really proud to have a nice grass surface.
Yeah,
easy in our winters and stuff. But
yep.
I think the pitch is just our little home. It's not the biggest, it's not the flashiest, but I think when we play there, it's truly defend the pitch. We're really proud of winning at home and being able to be strong at home. And so honestly, it never was let's go, play at Blakesley, which is a football stadium.
Yeah.
I think we're really proud to have our own space and have a place where Minnesota soccer is, and it's not a shared space.
It's nice to play on grass. I mean, it is, turf is different. I mean, yesterday in the rain, you could see it's stuff is, it's just kind of a different game. So yeah, you could see that. I mean, but it would be fun. I mean, it's just a team that has a lot of success. So I'm sure if you built it up to be the last home game is at football stadium, I bet you'd get a nice little crowd down in Mankato. It's credit to that. I want to ask you too, I was going to ask this at the end, but we were talking about Minnesota State. I know we called a game down there and it was very cold. I don't know if anyone could hear what I was saying, but it was fun either way. And one thing I had to get out of the habit of, because growing up, we always just called it Mankato State, right? Mm-hmm. And then at some point now, it's Minnesota State. So what do you call it? If you're referencing where you went to school, if someone's you're in Portugal, they'll be like, where'd you go to college? What do you say, Jenny?
So if I'm locally, it's MSU for most of us.
MSU, okay.
Able to know what MSU is.
Uh-huh.
Otherwise, it's Minnesota State, Mankato.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
I want to respect the brand. Look, I apologize to the Mavericks.
It's the thing because a lot, like you said, it used to be Mankato State, so you'll go and a lot of older generation will call it Mankato State, and it's funny because we have our marketing people are very strong. We are Minnesota State, so it's that is the name.
I respect their work. They were telling me, so I had to mentally correct myself. But no, respect. Yeah, Minnesota State. Look, they win enough. They deserve to be called what they want to be called. I re-listened to when I interviewed you. It was in advance of when I think we were just coming back from COVID, so summer or spring 2021, and name, image, likeness had changed. And so I asked you about where you would maybe get a deal if there was somewhere in Mankato. You mentioned Weggies or in Mankato. And so now you're actually a pro. You're going to get you talked about pancakes. I think I had a good idea. I said you should do the veteran short stack.
Oh, yeah.
That was one piece of the interview I thought I did well. Yeah, but you got to contact them and get a deal now, Jane.
Right, I guess, yeah.
Now your promotion. You'll be posting about them in the most absurd way from the Atlantic Ocean views in Portugal. It won't make any sense, but people will notice. They'll be like, what the hell? Yeah, let's go get pancakes. Portugal. You graduated this. You had 5 years, so maybe that made it easier to spread out the studies, because I know also you have a 4.0. Mm-hmm. Did you graduate with a 4.0, Jenny?
Yes, I did.
That's crazy. That's come on, take a day off. But and you were in pre-med, right?
Biomedical science, pre-med tracks.
Mm-hmm. And when I interviewed you before, it was funny because it just wasn't as a tangible place to talk about pro. You're like, oh, I'm going to go to med school. No, Jenna, you got other plans. But is that still a thing? Is it still your desire, like whenever the soccer journey ends, that you would move into doing something medical?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like, like a year ago, I didn't really even see myself playing professionally.
Yeah.
And so I think now it's like, okay, well, let's see where this goes, see how long it takes me. And then med school is definitely an option, but I'm also open to like doing some other stuff. So
yeah. Well, and also doing anything in terms like biology and medicine, it's like definitely a way you could stay in the game. You could be involved, or sports science in general. I know you play, like you're a track person, play basketball, you could do whatever in the game, right? Yeah.
For sure.
Right on. Talk about, it's something we deal with when we talk to other NSIC players about Mankato, facing them, like the energy, the vibe, the hype, and something that's really tangible, even when we're posting highlights, right, is like players on the sideline making noise. And it's like how much is like the intimidation and kind of like the vibe like intentional, or how, like is that an intentional thing to intimidate or to like make an impact on the opponent?
I think it's honestly less about the opponent and more about us and our culture.
Yeah.
I think we have such an emphasis on being a family and like loving each other, supporting each other. And we carry a big roster. We average 36, 38 players. Last year we were at 36. And so like having that amount of people, only 11 people are on the field. So you've got 25 people on the sideline cheering you on.
Yeah.
And so I think it's something that we pride ourselves on, of like everyone is involved. And I think everyone knows a role, and whether you start off or start on, if you're on the sideline at any point, you're cheering that next group on. So I do think that's something really special that like we have built, and like you'll notice like no one sits down, like we're all like, so I think it's just something to be like engaged and present in the game, like no matter where you are.
Yeah. Well, if it's just to motivate yourselves, it does make an impact on opponents. I suppose winning also helps make it an impact. Talk about playing. It's like into the minutia of NSIC, but I only watched a couple of their games. But like just tracking the results and then seeing the players that come out of there, Minot seems like they just suck to play against. They just want you to win 1-0. Like they grind you down. I wanted to ask you about that. Like, and maybe even just you can expand to other teams like that in the NSIC, because the league is big, and for you're a team that's expected to win. So teams come in with game plans, and just like there's a certain amount of teams that just try to muck it up, right?
Yeah. I think it's definitely interesting. I think we see a different approach than other teams who face other teams would see.
Yeah.
I think we're a very attack heavy program just in general. We want to go forward. We want to go forward quickly. And so I think a lot of teams take a more defensive approach when playing us. And so it's not something that's uncommon for us to see throughout the season. And so I think, during the week, it's like, who are we matching up against? What do we think they're gonna, are we gonna see a 6-back, a 7-back? And how do we work on breaking that down in other ways? So it's definitely interesting across the conference, the different approaches that we'll see, but usually it's consistent year to year somewhat. So I think we're kind of ready for it at the same time.
It's a fun league to watch, because you can, even Mankato and Bemidji and whoever else, Augie, who's a good team, they'll get a rare draw. They'll get a really tough, close win. Some of the best matchups, I feel like it's what I end up watching the most is you playing Bemidji, because it's either a playoffs or it's a game you want to highlight. And it feels like it's always snowing. It's always so snowy when you go up there. Talk about them. Talk about that rivalry, because it's a lot of fun for me to watch trying to cover the game.
Yeah, they've been a great team the last couple of years. Some really strong players, obviously, have come out of Bemidji as well. So it's always a good competition. As some of the teams that are usually closer to the top of the table, I think, that game is usually make or break on a conference title, right? Whether you're in the tournament or regular season. And so I think just that pressure always brings such great energy and fight out of both sides. And I think that's what makes those games so good.
And I absolutely am blanking on the person who did color for Bemidji the past years, but she this summer got to call a U20 CONCACAF like qualifier game.
Oh yeah.
Maddie Darlene was playing in it,
Okay.
and I apologize. Yeah, you're my bud. I know you know me, but yeah, she got to call that, and yeah, Bemidji they do a great job of you know, producing and promoting the team just like Mankato does, and yeah, like I said, seems like I'm always watching an NSIC playoff game between the two squads. But yeah, now you'll have to watch it as a fan.
Yes.
Talk about a little bit about Mankato soccer. Your sister, I loved. She was your coach as a young, like she was only what, like early 20s and coaching you in high school, right?
Yeah. So my senior year was her first year there.
Yeah.
At East as the varsity coach. So yeah, she would have been, you know, like 20. She would have only been like 20, 21.
Yeah. And she's still coaching there?
Yes, I think this might be her last year, or last year might have been, since she's kind of stepping into a bigger role as an assistant at MSU.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, she's been there obviously since I was a senior in high school for 6 years or whatever it's been. So, and I think what she's done there has been wonderful. You know, they were third in the state this year. Just fantastic. I think it was their first ever state berth. So super proud of her, and of course my alma mater. So
yeah, competing with, I mean, yeah, and I mean, making those runs into state, you end up competing with, like we were talking about, I mean, all the schools from the cities, like and even if you're not in the top class, you're competing with the private schools from the cities who have the, you know, have the big names, and like, you know, everyone playing in academies. So it's a cool thing. Mankato has got that pocket, and by the way, I mean, it's a really cool time for, I'm from Burrow, Minnesota, but I mean, talk about like Rochester has 5 summer league teams to be men and women. Mankato United owns Mankato. But then, you know, we have teams in Worthington for men, and Austin, and then like Superior City women are doing really well in the UPSL, and they're like Mankato, where almost all their players are really from well, they're actually even more local. All their players are from the Superior area, which is crazy. So cool to see the whole state moving forward in the game for sure. One kind of different thing I wanted to ask you about is, you're someone who, like, you'll post about your beliefs, you'll share values about like kind of inclusive causes, and it's a cool thing about the soccer world. I think that that is part of the positive nature of soccer culture, especially in the women's game. Like the women on the national team, I'm standing in a bar with a woman spray painted on it because she's a leader on things. But how do you think about using your voice, you know, for things that you care about like that? And especially now that you're being a college athlete is something different. Now you're just a professional where you may be a little more freedom too. I just wonder how you think about using your voice to talk about things you care about like that.
Yeah, I think it's like a gift to have a voice and to be given a voice. And so I think it would be a shame if I didn't use my voice in a positive way. And also just to like promote a more positive space on the internet. I think to show people that, you know, like, I'm someone that you can be yourself with no matter who you are. And I think that, you know, in this day and age, athletes are not just athletes. They're represent something bigger than that. And so, you know, whether you have a small following or a super big following, I think it's just important to like curate that space into something that is safe and inclusive and welcoming. So.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's good to hear from you. And it's inclusivity is cool, guys. We say this on it, but yeah, there's nothing cool about being exclusive. I'm in a bar where people feel it is the most inclusive place. People come here to watch soccer. They're coming here to watch drag. They get to be themselves. It's a positive thing. Yeah, and we're, you know, we'll have the Women's World Cup on, and people of any Star and Stripe can come watch. Talk about a couple little quick things, because I already did you dirty with the Mankato West reference. No Western, but who were they your favorite team to beat in high school? Who did you want to beat the most? Or was it when you faced, you know, in the playoffs, you faced like a suburb and want to beat Edina or whatever?
Yeah, I think it's always going to be East-West. You know, like in the Big Nine conference, it's so different because you'll have different classes even within the conference.
Yeah.
I think like with West, I think the community has done a really good job in kind of like supporting the rivalry in a positive way.
Yeah.
Every year there's Pack the Stands, which is the rivalry game, and they
Uh,
make a big deal out of it, and a lot of people attend, which I think just like speaks to like what soccer can be in our area and in the
mhm,
state as well.
mhm.
And so I think it's always like the East West Pack the Stands is always like the biggest game of the year for sure, or at
Yeah,
least
yeah,
there. So.
yeah. What's your favorite aside from playing them? Like, what's your favorite memory from high school? Is it like a playoff goal or like going to state? Like, what comes to mind if you think back to like glory days?
Yeah, I can't remember what year it was now. I think my sophomore year maybe. But we made a deep run, made it to the section final, and didn't end up winning, obviously. But I think like that belief that like yeah, we are good enough to like even make the section final, and I think at that time it was being held in New Prague. So you go to New Prague and you play in the football field under the lights, and everyone comes. And I think just to like experience that and feel that support is like
Mhm.
super special too. So I would say that was probably my favorite memory.
Yeah, yeah. Who's your favorite soccer player to watch, or just your favorite player?
Um, for a while it was Rachel Daly
Yeah.
and she's still having a great year. Loved her at the Houston Dash. Otherwise, like on the U.S. women's team, let's see, probably Lindsey Horan is. I love watching Lindsey Horan too.
Uh-huh.
Those are
I
some
like that because people wouldn't guess that. It's like that's not your game, but you like. What do you like about her?
She just plays different. She has that definitely like European flair to her, kind of like Tobin Heath too. They're like, the footy player, like
Mhm.
just yeah, she has good vision, like the way she plays. So
Yeah, she's definitely like a mental player. Like she's smart. She distributes.
yeah,
It's like she's some. I don't know. I don't know. Like I don't think of her as even like being that athletic. She just does it right and like makes the plays in the
yeah.
midfield. Yeah, she's yeah. She'll be in there.
Mhm.
Um, talk about when you're gonna leave. You've been in Mankato all the time. You've
Yeah,
always been in Mankato.
I'm in
Going to
Mankato.
Port, you're going to a nice place though, kind of like paradise on the coast in Portugal. But just talk about aside from family and friends. I know you're gonna miss family and friends. What are you gonna miss about Mankato
Hmm.
most? I mean, you'll find out like what fast food I guess you miss in a month. But
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I think just like the feeling of home, right? Like, I'm very much someone who's a homebody, more
mhm,
introverted, likes just being with my people. So I
mhm,
think just like that sense of like knowing where you are and like
mhm,
feeling like you're in your hometown, just the nostalgia of it all. So I think that'll be something I miss when I'm over there. So like the newness versus like
mhm.
normalcy factor.
Yeah. Yeah, to practice the next month, just spend some time alone, Jenny. Just get yourself into that. That's the thing. I mean, you'll just have a lot more independent time, and have to meet some new friends and get your little Portuguese going.
Yep.
Um, who we talked about Bemidji, I mentioned Minot, but like I wonder too. I don't know if it's a team or if there are like defenders that really mess with you, but. Is there any team or player like you're not gonna miss playing? You're like, F that, I don't want that you didn't like playing.
Um, I wouldn't say didn't like. I think, obviously like an opponent is an opponent at the end of the day, but I have to give a shout out to Megan who plays for Bemidji. She's always such a tough opponent, Megan Dahl.
Yeah,
A great career. Very
yeah,
happy. She earned All American honors this year, and
yeah.
just someone that's always so tough. Yeah, physically, she's a great leader. But it's funny. Like after every tackle, we're like, "You good? You good?" Yeah, So it's like,
Uh-huh.
really always enjoyed playing against her, and someone who I feel like has made me better,
Yeah,
just in playing against her. So
probably played her like 15 times, dude. It was 5 years, 2 times a year. Yeah, I mean, you played her a lot because it'd be playoffs, and yeah, for all of you, and also I want to maybe just give you space, like to say, it's easy to highlight Jenny. She scores crazy goals, and so rightfully we're highlighting her. But you also had. I didn't look up to have all the names ready. I want you to shout out your super senior class because the
mhm.
world of sports is filled with this now from COVID, but it was really cool to see like all the schools that had squads of like 6 people who
Yeah,
went, and some of them are like 6-year runs with like red shirts. But shout out your class who
sure.
went the whole 5 years with you.
Yeah. So Nadia Lowry, Katie Brown, Bryn Dazens, and then we had a transfer come in, Molly Saran, who was wonderful. I need to make sure I'm not missing any of them. I think
And then
that
you probably had others who just did 4 years. Maybe it didn't stay the 5.
and they're like the regular seniors. But like I was kind of mentioning before, I think it just shows how like strong our program is from a culture standpoint. You know, we don't have a lot of people who transfer, leave.
Yeah.
And we have people who want to come back and play again, regardless of their role.
Mhm.
So I think that's something that's really special too, is having that experience.
Yeah. Well, no, when we talk about the deep squad, I mean, it does mean a lot that you would expect players to be transferring,
Mhm.
sitting there, not playing. And so it does speak a lot to the culture. And so that needs to be commended because also, yeah, it's like, oh, COVID year. It's like, yeah, it's cool for you. You get another year. There's 5 freshmen sitting there like, oh, shit. I have to wait because Bryn and Jenny are still playing.
Yeah.
So, no, credit to Mankato and credit to when we talk about just the interconnectivity, it's the uniqueness of Summer League where D2 doesn't have rules of how many players can play on a Summer League team. So the integration with Mankato United and the Minnesota State program is really a cool thing. And it's safe to say it elevates the overall game in the area too, because there's so many players building connectivity all year round, which is crazy. Like, you know, the D1 teams can't do that. Only 5 players can play on a squad. You know, it's like, so yeah, very fun thing about Mankato. Jenny, and thank you so much for your time. You're heading out. When do you go to Portugal? You don't know quite yet, right? But August probably.
But sometime early in July, so very soon. But
early in July, going soon. Soak it up. All right, get your last mosquito bites in. I think you're going to be on the coast, and it's going to be gorgeous. There's going to be no humidity anymore. I don't know what Portugal's like, but we'll check in with you there. Thank you so much, Jenny.
Yeah, thank you.